Welcome back to another week of Honey from the Word. This week's devotion is titled, A God Who Knows It All, from Psalms 139, verses 1 through 6. O Lord, you have searched me and know me. You know my sitting down and my rising up. You understand my thought afar off. You comprehend my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all my ways. For there is not a word on my tongue, but behold, O Lord, you know it altogether. You have hedged me behind and before, and laid your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high. I cannot attain it. When the Bible teaches that God is omniscient, that he has complete knowledge, it's not saying that God is bright. It's not saying that he is sharp. It's not even saying that he is a genius. These are the finite expressions of a people severely limited by space and time. What the Bible is really getting at is that God knows everything. No question can confound him. No dilemma can confuse him. No event can surprise him. He has eternal, intrinsic, comprehensive, and absolutely perfect knowledge. You see, nothing is news to God. And unlike anyone else, God's knowledge is not limited to time. He reads our future just as clearly as he reads our past. Who we will be 50 years from now is no less certain to God than who we are 10 years ago. Not only does God know why and how things work, but he also knows the minute details of every daily existence. Unlike a computer, he doesn't have any memory problems in which he is forced to flush his memory banks to create room for more information. Even though he keeps track of the moon and the stars, not a single bird falls to the ground without God knowing exactly what is going on. His knowledge even covers seeming trivia, such as the latest count of the hairs on your head. Though many of the Psalms start out with a robust, bless the Lord, or praise the Lord, or rejoice in the Lord, in Psalms 139, David's knowledge of God's omniscience is so overwhelming, he manages only a whisper of wonderment. Oh, Lord. The reason David is so overwhelmed is his keen understanding that God's omniscience focuses on and specializes on God's knowledge of him. Yes, God understands the intricate mysteries of the atom and the complex interconnectedness of the planetary system. But all that pales in comparison with David's understanding that God knows him. You have searched me. You have known me. This knowledge stretches even to the humdrum of our daily lives. Such ridiculous activities as sitting and rising. You know my sitting down and my rising up, in verse 2. The Living Bible says, you know when I sit or stand. God doesn't miss it. You understand my thought afar off, it says in verse 2. And the Living Bible puts it this way, when far away you know my every thought. God knows everything we think. Every midnight thought, every calculating strategy, every private worship time, and every act of kindness. God sees it all. Then in verse 3, David recognizes that God follows our ways. You comprehend my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all my ways. God keeps a copy of our itinerary before it's printed. We have never taken a trip that has escaped his notice. If you're on top of the Empire State Building or buried in the mass of humanity traveling underground in the New York subway, God keeps his eyes trained on you. God also knows what we say. For there is not a word on my tongue, but behold, O Lord, you know it altogether, in verse 4. Even before we say it, God charts our words, and even the feelings that eventually lead to words. Think about that. God monitors our temperature. He feels the anger rising. He notices the fear spreading. And he sees the trust moderating. Good or bad, God sees it all. But even more wonderful, David points out, God knows what we need. In verse 5 he states, you have hedged me behind and before and laid your hand upon me. This is the perfect kind of protection in which all of my needs are known. If I'm thirsty, God knows it. If I'm lonely, God feels it. He's not like a lottery winner who shuns his friends in the time of their greatest need. On the contrary, in the midst of my needs, he lays his hand upon me. I must really matter to God. This God doesn't scrutinize the trees as he scrutinizes me. He doesn't get intimately acquainted with the ways of rocks or bushes. He gets intimately acquainted with me because he is passionately moved by who I am. Now let's consider what we have looked at. Okay? The bad news, he knows your secrets. While David is overwhelmed at the thought of God's omniscience, I know that some of you might be shifting a little, uneasy in your seat. When I ponder the fact that God knows all about me, I have to admit that at times, such attention is a bit of a mixed blessing. The good news is he must really care about me to want to know me so well. The bad news is he's intimately acquainted with all my ways. That means he's intimately acquainted with all my sin. You don't have to spend anxious nights wondering when God is going to find out. You see, he already knows. You might pretend that he doesn't, but he does. Don't bother trying to continue the sham. He wants you to stop the cover-up. Come clean and agree to change your ways. He's not going to condemn you. He simply wants to liberate you from the guilt that you've carried and set you on a new course. He already knows all about it. What could possibly stop you from owning up to your sin and asking him to forgive you? But the good news is, he also knows your scars. Every person is wounded in one way or another. Scars aren't just from childhoods. Some of you have more recent wounds, ones that are perhaps still too tender to be called scars. They're open, bleeding wounds. A number of you are bleeding emotionally and spiritually because your dreams have been shattered. For many of you, the walls feel as though they're mercilessly closing in. You may even hear your own screams and moans of agony echoing and bouncing off those walls, mocking you, taunting you, and making you feel even worse. Those of you who have screamed these screams need to be reminded of some powerful truths. First, you must grab hold of the secure lifeline provided by the truth that God knows. He is intimately acquainted with all of your ways. No feeling, no hurt, no scar, no wound has ever escaped his notice. Not only does he know, he cares. The Psalms declare, you have been tossing and turning through the night, Let this next phrase sink into you. You have collected all my tears and preserved them in your bottle. You have recorded every one in your book. Psalms 56 and verse 8 from the Living Bible. In ancient Middle Eastern culture, when a soldier went off to battle, he would buy a tear vial, a little bottle, and he would give it to his wife or his mother. She would promise, your absence will make me so sad. I will cry every night, and when I do, I'll collect those tears in this bottle. When you come back, you'll see my tears, and you'll know how precious you are to me. How do you like that? When God greets us in heaven, he'll be able to wave his tear bottle in front of his smiling face. Don't miss a one. Didn't miss a one, he'll say. Not a single one. Additionally, he not only collects each tear, but also records each one in his book. And I've written them down in my book. God is never careless with your tears, hurts, and wounds. That's how much you matter to him. More good news. He knows your service. Sometimes we get discouraged because because of what we do doesn't get noticed or appreciated. And the awful, soul-maddening silence that follows our secret acts of service often tempts us to conclude, what's the use? Why bother being the Boy Scout? Who really cares? Nice guys finish last anyway. That's when we need this reminder. Your Father sees in secret, who sees in secret, will himself reward you openly. Matthew 6 and verse 4. God is the note-taking heavenly observer. He knows about the time you bit your tongue when you could have contributed to a rumor. He takes notice every time you greet a stranger or visit a person in the hospital or prison. Our omniscient God has observed every secret act of character, conviction, and course in living color. In every activity and every conversation, God is present and says, I saw it. So carry on. Do it again. I'm going to reward you. I'm going to repay you. You have not been working in vain. We serve a God who knows it all. May we never forget that in our lives. May God bless you this week.